start because, you know, it's 5 minutes after something I don't know how it's going to work out, and it's not going to get very far, but you could see how I'm planning and laying things out. I actually had to carve the block in the hotel room while I was here, so it was a little more uncontrolled than I'm used to doing, and the table wasn't very sturdy, and my wood was very hard, and my tools were very dull, so I was struggling even there in the preparation for this. But actually, that's why it's exciting this morning to have the time to just dive into it, and this is literally how I kind of start, just starting to print the first runs. But I can explain a couple things to show you, yeah, that's great, to show you how I've laid things out to begin with. And this is why I put my pile of sketches up here that you're welcome to kind of look through this. And I brought my artist books because they're easy to handle and small in scale. You can look at those. But I put out these prints that are not in the exhibition because they're kind of an anomaly. They're just experimental works that I did last summer in Italy, and you can see the editioning was in all of these works, but I varied each one and then created a one unit piece out of it. So it's not like I normally work. I liked it very much. It was fun to do, but it needs to be shown in more alternative situations than in the formal commercial gallery. Who knows, they could have taken it, I'm sure, if I wanted to give it, but I'd like to show it in other ways. Informally like this is really nice. So again, I usually sketch on these pieces of paper, just index stock, and let things start flowing in order to get some ideas. And I always start with thinking I have no ideas anymore in the world. But I look back through the sketches, and then it starts refreshing me on ideas that I have in the past. And some of these pages are, I don't even know, 10 or more years old, but they kind of keep surfacing in this endlessly shuffling stack of pages. This is just a selection. There's about, 7 inches of them at home. So I can pick on ideas, and then I like to redraw, and I feel that if I spend about 20 minutes, I leap over the point where I don't have any ideas and things start flowing again. So I need that kind of discipline to come up with a very simple little thing that graphically looks interesting. That's why I decided to do this. It's a combination of several issues. You'll recognize these motifs from the exhibition down at the Davidson. Ideas about order and growth and opposites and contrasts and kind of urban pinnacles and rural permutations of growth patterns, I think is embodied in this little print. So from this little sketch, I went to this drawing. I usually draw on frosted mylar because it has a really wonderful sensitive surface, and I'll do a very rough black and white sketch in graphite. I don't do any color sketches or any pre-planning for the colors. That would just kill it for me if I had to decide ahead of time what the colors were. That is a very instinctual part that I don't want to analyze away. So I just will start with some colors. But this little sketch, and even when I'm transferring this onto the woodblock, I can't transfer every single mark. I don't want to do that because that's really dependent on how the colors work and the carving of the woodblock. But from that sketch, I made a tracing, and then I used this to transfer to my 2 woodblocks that I'm planning. Nowadays, I do a reduction block that I do 2 blocks that are corresponding. So before I make any decisions, I just automatically trace it onto 2 blocks. And then I continue to use this key drawing to plan out stencils. If I needed to go a 3rd block, it's there. If I needed to figure things out for other registration things, all the information is on this tracing, even with my registration marks. So you can see the registration marks are already marked out. And then the 2 blocks are planned to be, in essence, like a positive and negative, an opposite of each other. What's high here is theoretically carved away here. But I do a lot of shortcuts and lazy steps. Instead of carving this all away, I just carved a ditch around it, and then I don't have to put ink on this part. And I selectively ink. I can protect this with the paper stencil. Any kind, and then I even have these areas to consider later if I decide I need something in that area. So you can see how I prepared it then, negative, positive, being lazy, not carving all these spaces between here. They might become interesting later. And then before I did anything else, before I get into the ink, I'm going to show you, I prepared my papers. So I've been using Japanese papers. This one's called Nishino-uchi. And that's what a lot of the papers are in my prints. It's some, even the artist books, it's a paper I get from Maclean's. I love it. It has a real nice substantial quality, a little bit heavier than mulberry. And Nishi no Uchi. Nishinouchi. So I say it slowly, but the Japanese say it very quickly, and it's got a beautiful sound to it, and much more elegant than mine. And actually, I've gotten into preparing my papers before I even start printing by pre-stretching them. Although there's a step before that, even to back up 1 minute, is before I tear the paper down to size, but I go over every sheet with my hand, front and back, and you can feel the imperfections, possible little rocks in there. I look for more specks of bark, but I've discovered bug legs and human hair and little rocks and all those kind of things. I like to pick that out because they could actually leave a flaw in the wood. If you run it through the press, it could leave a little pinhole spot. So I'm doing that first. Then I'm running it through the press on an uncut block just to
calendar it.
Even it out, pre-stretch it. It may actually expand as much as 1/8 of an inch, especially on a big print. By the time you run it through a press, that expansion is going to make a difference at the end, and your registration will be terribly off. So now I do all of that pre-registration and pre-stretching all ahead of time, and then I make my registration marks.
So when you say stretching, you don't mean with water. You just mean running it through the press as your way of stretching it.
Right. And I'm doing it in the same kind of printing pressure that I would use, but just on an uncut block and with my same press setup like we're going to do today. I use a press board and no blankets, and just run it through, and sometimes I even turn the paper 90 degrees so it goes both directions being pre-stretched, and it ends up kind of settling the paper down a little. And then I put my registration marks on, and I like a lot of registration marks. Even though my prints are not perfect, I cannot always get them back on registration, and you just have to bear with me. It's a lifelong struggle. And I know you guys understand that. I admire Josie's prints. Josiah's, hers are beautifully registered, and I'm still learning as that's why I'm making prints, is to keep learning all these things and not actually worry about some of that perfection. Some of the irregularities and overlaps make interesting linear edges and kind of detail that I don't even have to plan.
What type of